Kevin was in an accident. My father ran out the door. My brother? Shocked at what had just happened, I also bolted out the door. It seems my brother was involved in a car accident and was being brought to our hospital. My name is Jack. I'm 32 years old. I work as a doctor at my family's hospital. My brother, Kevin, who is 7 years older than me, also works as a doctor. He will be the one to inherit our family's hospital from our parents. My brother married when he was young and has 2 kids. Since he focuses mostly on his work, he doesn't help out with his kids all that much. His wife was so exhausted that she left him and moved back with her family, who live pretty far away. Kevin's wife is someone I've known for a while. She's a strong person who really loves Kevin, which is why she's able to hold on so long. But recently, she couldn't take it anymore and just exploded. Kevin is striving to be a top doctor for the sake of his family, but he doesn't really have a way with words, so he had trouble communicating that with his wife. He felt a lot of regret after the divorce, which is why he pays a lot in child support now. Kevin remarried 1 year ago. His new wife, Lynn, is 4 years younger than he is. Lynn is the daughter of one of our dad's friends. Our dad was worried about Kevin being single when he inherited the hospital, so he introduced the 2 of them to each other. Kevin felt really bad for his ex-wife and kids, and I didn't think he would do it, but I guess Dad was just that annoying about it. He was pretty negligent of his wife after they got married, but Lynn was an optimistic person who said that thanks to this marriage, she now has peace of mind. Lynn loved luxury brands, so every time something new was released, she would immediately buy it. She also loved to show off her status as the wife of someone who would inherit a hospital. Kevin and Lynn wouldn't interfere into each other's lives. I don't know details, but it seems that because of that, they got along. But after around a year of them being married, Kevin told me that Lynn would use his credit card without asking and spend huge amounts of money. Kevin would give Lynn money every month, but she didn't do any housework at all. She was a housewife and she didn't work, so he told her he wanted her to do at least a bit more around the house. Kevin told her that if she continues not helping around the house, he didn't understand what was the point of being married to her. Lynn replied that he doesn't make enough money to afford to give her the allowance she wants and needs. When our dad was annoying Kevin about getting remarried, Kevin said he'd be fine marrying anyone, but he didn't expect things would turn out like this. When Kevin first met his wife, she even promised that she would do all the housework, so he thought if he was with her at least that side of things would be sorted. I also remember hearing her say that she's great around the house, and that she wants him to leave everything to her. It seems she was just saying that so we'd have a good first impression of her. Though she was at the house all day, she didn't do any housework and just spent needless amounts of money. But my brother didn't want to deal with a divorce again, and he knew that our dad would just annoy him about it. "Jack, I'd honestly be happy if you get married, have kids, and inherit the hospital," Kevin said to me. A part of me did agree with him, but my girlfriend's profession wasn't at all related to medicine, and I knew that my father wasn't too happy with my girlfriend because of her profession. We were a family of all doctors after all. I shared those worries to my brother. "Well, that's true," Kevin replied with a sigh. I spoke to my brother about his situation many times again later. Things were just getting worse, and he seemed to regret getting remarried. Around that time, I got the news about my brother's car accident. "Kevin was in an accident!" My father ran out the door. My brother? Shocked at what had just happened, I also bolted out the door. Sadly, my brother passed away. According to what I heard later, my brother was off duty today, so he had gone out shopping. As he was out, a truck lost control and flew over onto the sidewalk and crushed him. The driver of the truck had lost consciousness. Supposedly, a middle school-aged boy and an elementary school-aged girl were holding hands and walked right in front of the truck. My brother leapt out in order to save them. My niece and nephew were the same age as those children, so I'm sure Kevin thought of his own kids when he jumped to save them. Before the funeral, I got in touch with Kevin's ex-wife. As she heard the story, she began sobbing. She said she wanted to come to the funeral with the kids. I thought to myself that she must still love Kevin deep down. That's when I found out that Kevin was giving most of his salary to his ex-wife as child support. He continued to do that even after he remarried. As the person who would inherit the hospital, his salary was pretty high. He gave the rest of his money to Lynn. When Kevin's ex-wife found out that he was getting remarried, she tried telling him to not give them that much, but he knew that they would struggle financially without him, and he wanted to live a free and unburdened life, so he never decreased the amount he gave them. If my brother wasn't such a clumsy person, he probably could have gotten back together with his ex-wife. He obviously still cared about her and his kids even after he married Lynn. Many people came to his funeral. Even though he was an awkward person, he was great at his job. Many patients he had helped came, and seeing them made my heart hurt. After the funeral, Lynn came over to where all of our relatives had gathered. She looked over at me. "It's too bad about what happened to your brother, Jack," she said with a grin. "Now, I'll inherit so much money, I can play around the rest of my life. I already spent $8,000. I'm looking forward to my life from now on. Meeting with Kevin's relatives will just be a pain, so this is goodbye forever. Kevin got into an accident at the perfect time. I'm really grateful to him." Lynn said such unbelievable things. I couldn't help but laugh at her. It seems she doesn't know the truth. As Lynn started leaving, my relatives and I all burst out laughing. Lynn stopped and turned around. "What's up with you guys?" She glared at us. With a laugh, I said, "You really don't know anything, huh? My brother was single." Lynn froze as if time had stopped. "Huh?" We were all silent for a while. "What do you mean?" Lynn pressed us to explain. "Around 6 months ago, you got into a huge fight with Kevin, right? You had spent a lot of money without asking again, and my brother was super angry. You said that the two of you should divorce, and you handed him signed divorce papers and left the house, right?" Confused, Lynn nodded. As she began to remember, her face grew pale. "After handing him the divorce papers, you told him to leave your home, right? You probably said it as a joke, but it put my brother in a bad mood, and he actually moved into the hotel. He couldn't get in touch with you, and he went back home multiple times, but you were never there." "But he said he didn't want to deal with the hassle of getting a divorce again, and will be happy with just pretending we're married for the sake of his dad. Did he really file those divorce papers?" Lynn's face was so pale it was nearly blue. "He did that because he knew the real you. He told me that the rental contract for the apartment you two lived in ends this month. He said he's told this to you. So what are you thinking?" Lynn took out her phone in a panic. She seems to be looking back at old texts from my brother. "You see them, right? All the messages he sent you when you weren't home. He put all his stuff into storage. You didn't think something must have happened when you saw that your apartment was empty? Or maybe since you were with your lover the whole time, you never returned to the apartment?" Lynn began quickly spitting out excuses. "You're wrong. I wasn't having an affair. I just bought him some brand name goods here and there. I was staying over at a friend's house." I didn't care about the affair at this point, but she was saying she spent the money my brother worked hard to make on another man? To hold myself back, I took a deep sigh. "You're the one who brought up getting a divorce, weren't you? You printed out and signed the divorce forms, so you must have been prepared. There's nothing wrong with my brother filing papers that you had already signed and given him." Lynn finally looked up at me from her phone. "And what about the inheritance? What about the $8,000 I just spent? It was from Kevin's bank account, so the payment should still go through, right?" All she worried about was money. I felt bad for Kevin. "Did you use that money on your lover? You are no longer my brother's wife, so of course you won't be receiving any inheritance. Also, there is no way you can use my brother's credit card without his permission, so expect his lawyer to get in touch with you. I will check with his lawyer later. Well, using another person's credit card without their permission is a crime, so we'll actually probably have to talk to the police about this." "The police?" Lynn finally realized the gravity of the situation. "Even though my brother has passed away, we will be taking all this up with his lawyer, so be prepared." Once I finished talking, Lynn ran away. Kevin had prepared for his divorce, but because of the timing of his death, he never got to tell Lynn anything. It's regrettable that he couldn't tell her all this time. But at least Lynn still received karma for all she had done. We later sued Lynn for using my brother's credit cards without his permission. Since Lynn didn't receive the inheritance from my brother she expected, she had no way to pay any of her debts back, and she ran out crying to her family for help. Her parents apologized and paid for everything. I've heard that now Lynn's parents keep a very close eye on her, and she spends all day working. After many discussions with my parents, we decided to leave all of Kevin's money and property to his children. Seeing them holding their mom's hand and crying at Kevin's funeral made me cry as well. Kevin's ex-wife really hadn't let go of her feelings for him, but when she heard that he was getting remarried, she tried to force herself to forget him. I told her that I'm sure he still loved her as well. I realized that he was the type that couldn't express his love for the people he really cared for. He really was too awkward for his own good. As I said this to his ex-wife, she nodded and cried. My nephew has been saying that he wants to become a doctor like his father, so Kevin's ex-wife said they will use the inheritance they received to make sure that happens. I told her I will do all I can to help. A few months later, there was a big commotion at our hospital. A woman was screaming at our front desk. She screamed for my father and I to come out of our offices, and when I finally stepped out into the lobby, I saw that it was Lynn. As soon as Lynn saw me, she ran up to me and yelled, "Kevin's kids will be receiving his inheritance? What a joke! Why won't I receive anything?" Where did she hear that from? Lynn glared at me spitefully. I thought this might happen one day, but not like this. Sick and tired of her, I explained everything. "Didn't I tell you? Since you and my brother divorced, you have no right to any of his money or property. If you had received the inheritance, I'm sure you could have afforded to pay for what you bought using Kevin's credit card. But didn't we tell you that the way you used Kevin's credit card was illegal? We sued you, and you still don't understand? And of course Kevin's children have the legal right to inherit his property after he passes away." But Lynn wouldn't give up. "The kids inheriting the money? That just means his ex-wife will receive everything. I think it's strange for his ex-wife to get everything when I haven't even received a dime. I will talk to her directly. Tell me where she lives." She continued saying ridiculous things. Her desperation for money was so extreme, I really couldn't understand her. "I'm not telling you where she lives. Unlike you, his ex-wife is an upstanding person. Even without the inheritance, she was doing her very best to raise her and Kevin's children. She never tried to get that money, and never even expected that she would get it one day. You and Kevin were divorced before he passed away, so just forget about Kevin and go to your lover." Lynn just went crazier. "When I told him I was divorced and getting sued, he ghosted me, even though I bought him so many things," she said angrily. Her lover's aim was money after all. If Lynn had received the inheritance, her lover would have probably stayed with her, but since she didn't, she had no one on her side. "This is all because you would constantly splurge money. The money you spent on that man is gone. But why don't you try selling some of your brand name goods? If you do that, I'm sure you'll make money. Your parents paid off your debts in your place. Please return them their money." "My parents already sold them. Well, I hid my favorite pieces in the storage room I'm renting out." Lynn spoke proudly. I couldn't tell if she was in her right mind. Seeing that she was wearing brand name products today, I wondered if she visited her storage and changed her clothes there before coming to the hospital. "You really are a pain. I will tell your parents about this. I'm sure that storage costs you money. Isn't that a waste? We have nothing more to talk about anymore, so please leave." Lynn continued to make a commotion, so I threatened to call the police on her if she didn't leave. My father told Lynn's parents about the storage room. When they found it, they sold all the brand name goods they found inside. Her parents were very disappointed in her. Kevin's ex-wife and kids seemed to be living well. His son, who dreams of becoming a doctor, is studying very hard. I stood in front of Kevin's grave and told this all to him. I'm sure that he's smiling down